we've got times four is the 30-minute programs. So let's go ahead and get started. Uh, there we go. There's my information, the outline, the objectives, but I want to start with that perfect caregiver because I know that's what all of you are, is the perfect caregiver. So let's just make sure that we're checking all the boxes here. So, perfect caregiver, wanted, full-time caregiver for a dementia patient, must have unlimited stamina, be energetic, alert and attentive, friendly and caring, totally understanding and forever patient, must be willing to always subordinate own needs to those of the patient and have few, if any, other commitments, must know how to handle any situation, background degree in psychology or human relations is preferred, plus basic nursing skills, basic knowledge of medications and their interactions as well as side effects, must be prepared to work for no pay and expect little, if any, appreciation of above abilities from the patient. And that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. Or that's what we're trying to do anyway. Let's just start with some staggering statistics of the increased risk of death for caregivers. This isn't just something that we read every year. This is something that we experience every year because I stand at the graveside of way too many caregivers. Caregiver spouses between the ages of 66 and 96 who are experiencing the mental and emotional strain of caregiving have a 63% higher risk of dying than people the same age who are not caregivers. 64% of adult children who are caregiving for 4 or more years have a higher chance of dying than their parent who has dementia. And those of you who are in the throes of it or have been in the throes of it or who work with those who are in the throes of it, we get it. We understand why. Because of what stress does to the body. A few more statistics. We call the caregiver the hidden patient because this isn't a disease where this is just going to be a few weeks, a few days, a few months. It's years. It's years. 67% of caregivers are women. 66% of caregivers live with the person that they're taking care of. And a quarter of all caregivers are those sandwich caregivers. So they're taking care of the aging parent and they still have a child at home. And then 30% of all caregivers are 65 and older. Brand new statistics in healthcare come out every January and every August. So as we get new statistics, we update these as well. So keep that in mind as we go through. If you see some numbers that you're going, wait, that looks a little different from what I've seen. Number one question that we get asked, how do I know when it's time to place my loved one? And this is going to feed into that guilt of being a caregiver because maybe you've got the guilt of placement or the guilt of thinking of placement. Safety, two types of safety, physical and emotional safety of two people, the person with dementia and the caregiver. Keep that in mind. Now, here is a quote from Rosalind Carter, who we were so blessed to be associated with before her passing. If we do not begin to seriously address the needs of caregivers and provide the necessary supports, this indispensable, largely invisible component of our healthcare system is in danger of collapse. So we made a promise. Maybe we really made a promise to our loved one. And there's all kinds of promises that you made. Maybe you made the promise that you would never place them. You didn't have any way of knowing where the disease was going to go when you made that promise. You did not have any way of knowing where it would take them or where it would take you when you made that promise. And if your loved one asked you to make a promise, they were not in the same place then as they are now. That may have been when they were very active and they were very healthy and they were of sound mind that they asked you to make a promise to them. And when you made that promise, you made it on the information you had at the time. You didn't have a crystal ball. You didn't have any way of looking into the future. So, do you ever find yourself looking at other caregivers? Maybe you're somebody who's on a lot of our programs or you're on our support groups and you go, well, they seem to be managing better than I am. Or have you ever had that big G word come sit over your head, guilt? And again, if you're not in support groups, I encourage you to get in support groups because we really talk about replacing the word guilt with grief. That what you're feeling when you're taking care of somebody with dementia, even if you're calling it guilt, if you really study it and you think about it and you sit with that feeling for a little while, more than likely it's grief. This is grief. Even if your loved one is still alive, you're grieving the loss of the relationship the way it was. You're grieving the loss of your loved one the way that they were. Now, could you feel guilt over things like your reactions? Maybe you lost your temper. Of course. But the more you educate yourself, like you're doing right now, the more you come to support groups, you watch our YouTube page where we've got dozens of videos, you start to educate yourself and you learn to respond rather than react. That's the key with all communication. But especially when we have somebody that we love that has dementia, what if we could start to respond rather than react? The feeling like I need time apart from my loved one, but how much time do I have? And now I feel guilty because I feel like I need time apart. All of these that we're mentioning, you're not the only one feeling that way. How do you think we wrote this program? Because we heard these very things from you. Mixed feelings about your loved one's death. This time of year, we lose a lot of people with dementia. They just don't have the reserves to fight off cold and flu and COVID and pneumonia and all the things that are out right now. And rather than having that feeling of relief, what if we change that word to release? I was able to release them. They were released from the disease, and I was released too. And it's okay. Your feelings about your loved one may change. You might be embarrassed over some things that they say or do. Keep in mind, and I will continue to say this, you had the best of intentions and you meant what you said when you said it. If you made promises about anything, of course you meant it when you said it. You may very well, because almost everybody intends to keep their loved one at home. I don't know if I've met anyone in more than a decade of doing this that said, yep, the minute we get a diagnosis, I'm going to place my loved one. I don't think I've ever met anyone that said that. We think we're going to keep our loved one at home with extra help from family and friends, and then they don't show up. Or we're going to use those adult day programs because they're good, and they are. We're going to use in-home care and we're going to use respite. Then we had no idea about how much help it would take or how many hours it would take or how expensive it could get to be. Again, when we made the promise, we made it with the information we had at the time. Could it also be, could part of our guilt be coming from denial, being in denial and thinking it could never get that bad? Keeping in mind that the decisions you have made have been made with love. And when we hear that word nursing home, the majority of us, if I were to ask you, Talk to me about a nursing home. When we hear the word nursing home, we think of the nursing homes from decades ago, maybe where our grandparents were, or even our great grandparents, where you walk in the door and I smell it. You probably have it stored in your sensory memory. You can smell it, you can see it. Bright white, the bright white floors smells like antiseptic, or maybe it smells like urine. That's not what nursing homes are now. It's not what they should be. That's not where they wanted to be, and that's not where you said you would. That's where you said you weren't going to put them. So, again, that word guilt, and I'm going to ask you this year, I hope that this year, because here we are on the seventh day of the year, that one of your goals can be to start releasing that guilt and replacing it with what it is. In counseling, we use the words, if you can name it, you can tame it, and if you can feel it, you can heal it. If you can name it, you can tame it. If you can feel it, you can heal it. But let's replace that word guilt with grief. This is grief. We all have limits. We're all human. Your health and your happiness are important. Some guilt is going to be normal. Of course it is, because guilt is part of grief. But when we let that hang over us, it starts to affect our health. So let's switch that to grief. And what is grief? Because I say the word grief an awful lot since I'm a grief therapist, and folks will say back to me, but my loved one's still alive. Right. Grief is just loss. Grief is loss. Grief doesn't mean death. When you look up the word grief, it doesn't automatically say death. Grief is loss. We grieve anything that we lose. There's grief in a divorce. There's grief in a job loss. There's grief in bankruptcy. There's grief in anything where there is a loss, there's grief. Now, look what I've got there in bold print. Any type of a change that we perceive as a loss, because what I perceive as a loss and what you perceive as a loss might be completely two different things. And it's normal. We just live in a culture and live in a country where we're never supposed to feel bad about anything. We're always supposed to feel great and just be happy all the time. And that's just not realistic. But we go on social media and everybody's happy. Well, of course they are. Nobody's taking selfies of themselves whenever they're in the bed under the covers and depressed. Grief. And it can be overwhelming. And a big, big challenge is if you do place your loved one and you move them and you realize that now you're living separately and that they're not coming home. It's a huge shift. But again, it's reframing the words from guilt to grief. So let's look at this term called disproportionate guilt. We have to think about the things that we have control over and the things that we do not have any control over. We have no control over dementia. There isn't one thing we can do about it. We have no control over death. This is a terminal illness. We don't have any control over our friends and family that we thought would show up. That's called expectations, and that can get us in a whole lot of trouble. And you don't have any control over not knowing what you don't know. But you do have control over your reactions and your responses, what you do with your time, your self-care, and what you learn. And that's what you're doing right now. Another term I want you to think about is the term regret. Because think about what guilt is. When we've done something wrong, if you're in a court of law, you're guilty or you're innocent. What if what we're feeling is regret? It's sadness, it's repentance, it's disappointment. So could it be regret that you're feeling? Because my guess is you've been doing the best that you could with the information that you had, and hindsight is different from foresight. So be really realistic and think back over whatever it is that you've got guilt hanging over you and think about the word regret. Now, I want to give you a couple of exercises about breaking the guilt cycle, and it's reframing guilt feelings. Is it guilt or is it regret or is it grief? And is your guilt based on actions or feelings? And again, you're going to get these slides because this is a fast program. This is our bite-sized 30-minute program. So ask yourself this: did I intentionally cause harm? Did I do that on purpose? Is your guilt self-imposed or is it put on by somebody else? And do your feelings of guilt benefit you? And do they benefit your loved one? So the exercise is fill in this blank. My guilt may not be the best response. It impacts my attitude and behavior toward others in the following ways. Accept you're limited in your ways and powers to serve and please others. And we've got to stop judging ourselves because likely other people aren't judging you, it's you. So replace the word guilt with regret. I regret I lost my temper when my loved one blank. I regret that I feel blank. I regret our relationship is blank. And with caregivers, lots of times that C becomes, I regret that I've become a caregiver and I've lost being a wife. I regret that I've become a caregiver and I've lost being a daughter. So our goal is to do both because you can do both. Then we want to give yourself credit. Kind, loving, caring, selfless. What are some things you do on a regular basis? Keep in mind, perfection is not real. I want you to hear this quote. Guilt is part of who we are as caregivers. There will always be a difference between what we are truly able to do and what we think we should, there's that bad word, should, be doing, which causes guilt. Work to accept the fact that it's not realistic to do everything. This helps reduce the feelings of guilt. You do not have an S on your chest. You're not Superman. You're not Wonder Woman. And one of the things we use in our dealing with dementia class is we've got this beautiful picture of Superman standing there in a Superman pose. You know who's standing behind him? The Justice League. Because even Superman doesn't do things by himself. He's got a team with him. Keep that in mind. Remind yourself, if you did make a promise to your loved one, that you are going to continue to honor the spirit in which you made the promise, even if you have to break the promise. What you promised in reality, what you vowed to do, is to provide them with the best possible care in the best setting possible. So many times, spouses especially will say, but I feel like I'm breaking my vows if I have to place them because I signed up for this. If your loved one, and I ask you to do this, if your loved one could just for 5 minutes be who they were for your whole marriage and they saw what it was doing to you, what would they say? What would they tell you to do? And also, I encourage you to talk to yourself like you talk to a friend. Talk to yourself like you talk to a friend. Would you go in and tell your friend woulda, coulda, shouldas? That's what we tend to tell ourselves. If only you would have, you should have, if you could have. So this morning I was working on the grief support group that we have the second Saturday of each month, which is this Saturday. And I was working on this right here about giving yourself permission to feel your feelings and to experience your emotions. You cannot move through grief if you won't feel the feelings. That's why, again, going back to what I said earlier, if you can name it, you can tame it. If you can feel it, you can heal it. That's how we move through grief. Part of that's accepting heartbreak. Part of that is accepting this is grief. No, I don't like calling it that. What if I did? Because it's what it is. And that you allowed yourself to lean into and sit in that. And then let yourself know that this is all normal. There's not a week go by that I don't get emails from people saying, I don't want to talk about this on support group because I don't think anyone else is feeling this. And I've never, ever, ever had anybody give me a topic that I hadn't heard before. Maybe that group of friends and family you're with right now hasn't heard it because they hadn't been on your walk. So you get with a group of people who've been on the journey. Stop yourself when that self-talk starts to tear you down. You can actually bring unnecessary worry and false guilt on yourself because of your words. It's the beginning of the year. This is a great time to choose. I'm not going to ask you to do resolutions. I don't believe in those, but I do like choosing a word for the year. A word for the year. 2 years ago, my word was play. Last year, it was gratitude. And this year, it's organization. A word, just a word. A mantra that you can say to yourself. Talk to yourself like you talk to a friend and don't accept anything else. And then shield yourself. If there are people around you that are making you feel insecure or making you question your decisions, then they may not be the best people for you to be around right now. You do not have room or time for negativity from anyone. And you don't have to argue with them, but you are the caregiver. Give yourself some time. Hold some people at arm's distance. And if your loved one's still at home, please keep in mind that you're doing the job of an entire nursing community. We've got over 200 people on staff at the West Center. Every one of us get to clock out and go home at the end of the day. You've been being the cook, the maintenance department, the entertainment, the laundry, you've been doing everything. This particular disease is a marathon, not a sprint. There is no sprinting to this, and we've got to be the ones who accommodate dementia because our loved one can't. What if we took this year and said, I'm going to get back to being my loved one's wife. I'm going to get back to being the husband, the daughter, the son, the friend. This is a really good time to do it. Now, how do I do it? Let me focus on connections. Connections, not perfection. One of the ways you can do that, doing classes like you're doing right now, get in a support group. We've got a group that meets today at 1 o'clock, and we meet for 90 minutes because there's so many people in that group, and it's open to everybody. We've got a group that meets in person every Friday from 11 to 12 at the West Center. We've got a second Saturday support group that's online that is all about the grief of caregiving. And starting in February, we're going to start a fourth support group that's going to be on the first Friday of every month. And it's going to be an in-person grief group at the West Center from 9 to 10:30. I'm going to send information out about it soon. Find somebody that you can talk to that's not going to give you back anything other than their listening ear. We need to be heard. We need that friend. We need that person who will just listen. Be careful with expectations of yourself and of other people. And if you are needing to forgive yourself, please work on that. It's okay. You are okay. You can do this because I know there are times you think you can't do it. You can. And if you need for me to put you with another person, if you're a wife and you want to talk to a wife, I can get you with people who will talk to you. If you're a husband, you want to talk to another husband on this journey, I've got people that I can get you their information and they'll talk with you. You're not failing. You're not failing. And right now, don't think about anything before 11/25 on the 7th of January. We can't dwell on the past. We've got to be present with dementia. We've got to be right now. In the last 30 days, I think I've sat with 7 families as their loved ones passed away. We just don't know. Be present. Be present right now. Be mindful today. There's our resources that we used writing this program. There's our information. So our phone number is on there, our email is on there. I appreciate your time. Again, bite-sized program. So be looking for more of these. You will get a copy of the slides, you will get a copy of the video, and the video will be up on our YouTube page before the end of the week. We have a couple of minutes left. Does anybody have anything you'd like to put in the chat? Or with 50 people, you probably could unmute and ask a question if you'd like. I am going to, let me turn my background off because I want to show you a book that I'm going to recommend for those of you that are readers. Just background, none. Okay, this is the book that I'm working through with the grief group. It's called First Aid for Broken Hearts. First Aid for Broken Hearts. You can get it on Amazon. Alan Wolfelt, PhD. He's even got his own website. He is an expert in grief. But if you go in and type in First Aid for Broken Hearts, small book, and it is for all types of grief. And I have used it with my clients with divorce, with death, with dementia. And this is actually the book that we're working through in our second Saturday support group right now. And it has really good exercises. In fact, the one I was looking at today, it's true. You have to feel it to heal it. There it is right there. So again, First Aid for Broken Hearts. Highly, highly recommend it. You can get it on Amazon. You can also get it at his site. If you type in his name, Alan Wolfett, he's got his own website. Online support group, somebody just asked, online support group is today at 1. And then the grief group is Saturday at 10:30. Our YouTube channel, if you go to YouTube and you type in James L. West Center for Dementia Care, you need to put the whole name in. You can click on it. We've got dozens of videos, dozens. We've got shorts that are like 2-minute videos. We've got these new 30-minute, and we've got them all the way up to 90-minute. And you can even search. So if you are probably our most viewed is the one on communication. And that's the one I always send people to first is communication through the stages of dementia. We talk to you about how to communicate with your loved one as their needs and abilities change. And probably our second one is Dementia 101. Dementia 101. If you want to attend the group today, you can go to our website, jameslwest.org, and the link should be there. You can also email me, and I will put it in the chat. And we're almost out of time, but let me put my email in there. It's hlow at jameslwest, hlow at jameslwest.org. And I can send you the link real quick. And we'll be on from 1 to 2:30. You don't have to stay the whole time. We have a lot of folks who come on during their lunch hour and then they have to go. But we made it 90 minutes because we usually have about 30 or so people on there from all over the world, not just the United States. All right, we're right at time. Thanks everybody for being on. Have a good rest of your day.